Today we're going to look at how to reflect shapes. So reflection is like looking at a shape in a mirror or flipping the shape over a mirror line. Now one of the skills that we need is to be able to plot mirror lines. So let's look at that before we start reflecting. So I've put on this sheet of paper 4 graphs and the equations of 4 lines. X equals -3 is our first equation. And what that tells us is that any point on that line has an x coordinate of -3. So some examples of points that could be on the line are -3, 2, -3, 4, -3, -2, anything which has an x coordinate, a first coordinate of -3. So if I plot some of these points, -3, 2 would be there, -3, 4 would be here, -3, -2 would be here, and you can see I'm starting to make a straight line, which is a vertical line which goes through my x-axis at -3. Quick reminder that this is the x-axis because it goes across and an x is shaped like a cross, so the x-axis is a cross, and the y-axis is this one here because it's y to the sky. So this is the line x equals -3, and the line x equals -3 goes through the x-axis at -3. The line y equals 6 will have coordinates where the y coordinate, the second coordinate, is always 6. So it could be something like 1, 6, 5, 6, -10, 6. So if I start to plot some of these, 1, 6, 5, 6, -10, 6 will look like this, and you can see this gives us a horizontal line which goes through the y-axis at 6. So if you have an equation which is x equals a number, it goes through the x-axis at that number, so it will be a vertical line going through the x-axis at that number. If you have y equals a number, it goes through the y-axis at that number, so it's a horizontal line. If you have the line y equals x, if it has x's and y's in it, it will be a diagonal line. And the line y equals x, the y coordinate is always the same as the x coordinate. So it's things like 1, 1, where our x and our y coordinates are the same. It could be 7, 7. It could be -3, -3. And if you plot those, you will see that you get a diagonal line. And this diagonal line has a gradient of 1. So for every 1 square across, it also goes up by 1. So it goes neatly through the corners of every square. So it goes through all of these corners here. The line y equals -x, whenever you have an x coordinate, the y coordinate is the negative of that. So something like 1 - 1, 5 - 5. Or it could be the other way around, -6, 6. So if I plot those, 1 - 1, 5 - 5, and -6, 6, it will make a line which is still a diagonal, but this time it's going downwards. So it has a gradient of -1. And again, it goes neatly through the corners of every square. So those are the types of lines that you need to be able to draw to use as your mirror lines when we're reflecting. So let's look at some examples of reflecting shapes. So I've got 5 examples here that I'm going to do with you before you have a go at this for yourself. Let's start with this rectangle here. It asks us to reflect it in the line x equals -9. So my x-axis is the axis that goes across, and my y-axis is the one that goes to the sky. So the line x equals -9 goes through the x-axis at -9, that's here. So it's a vertical line going through that point. So that's the mirror line that I'm going to use. Now I'm going to get my specialist piece of equipment that I warned you that you were going to need, and that specialist piece of equipment is a bit of tracing paper. Or if, like me, you don't have tracing paper at home, hopefully you've managed to find something that you can use instead. So I found a bit of baking paper. You might be able to find a bit of really thin paper, as long as you can see through it when you put it on top of your page. Or sometimes I've even used a piece of cling film and a marker pen and drawn on the cling film in marker pen, just as long as you've got something a bit see-through that you can draw on. Now this is a bit annoying because it springs together when I lay it flat, but it doesn't matter, I'm still going to be able to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw around my shape, and I don't need to do this with a ruler because it doesn't need to be really neat, because this is just my bit of working on my tracing paper. And I'm also going to draw my mirror line. I'm going to make sure I draw that nice and straight, so I'll use my ruler for that. So I've traced round my shape and my mirror line. Now I'm going to pick my tracing paper up and I'm going to fold it where the mirror line is. So nice and neatly, exactly where the mirror line is. Like that. And then I'm going to put it back on my page and I'm going to let it fold again. And this tells me where my reflected shape will be. So I've used my tracing paper to flip my shape. And any test that you do, you are always allowed to ask for tracing paper. You might not be given it when you first start, but you're always allowed to ask for it. So that's why it's a really good piece of equipment to use, because we're allowed it in tests. So I've drawn around the shape, I've folded it over the mirror line, and I can see where it needs to go. So now I need to draw that in. I'm not very good at remembering, so I'm going to put a sneaky 4 dots by just peering underneath. And then I'm going to draw the shape in, and I'm going to make sure it is neat now, because this is on my final work. So I'm going to use my ruler. And there we go. So notice that just like when you look in the mirror, the distance of the shape from the mirror line is the same as the distance of the reflection from the mirror line. So it's like if you look into a mirror, if you look close into the mirror, your reflection is close. If you go further away, your reflection goes further away. So the distance of the shape from the mirror line should be the same on both sides of the mirror line. Okay, I'm going to tick this one off because I've done it. So let's have a look at one of the other shapes. Let's look at this one here. Y equals -3. So my mirror line this time goes through the y-axis at -3. So this is my y-axis. -1, -2, -3. Here's -3. So to go through the y-axis at -3, it must be a horizontal line, like this. And then a bit of tracing paper. I'm going to draw around my shape. Again, it doesn't need to be neat, so it's just to help me with my working out. And then draw the mirror line in, and I'm going to make this nice and straight. And then I can pick it up and make it a nice neat fold along that line. This is where it might be a bit complicated if you're using cling film. Right, I've now folded it, so put it back on the paper, line it up carefully, and then fold it over the mirror line, and I can see where my shape needs to go. So this line has stayed in the same place. It's called invariant if it stays in the same place. So this line is invariant. And the other points have moved, so let's put a little dot where those corners are. One there and one there. That's it. So then if I line that up with my ruler and draw it in neatly, and I've got my reflection for this shape here. Okay, let's do this square here next. So we need the mirror line x equals 3. So that needs to be 3 on the x-axis. So 1, 2, 3. It's inside this shape here. So it goes through the x-axis at 3. So it must be this vertical line here. So using my tracing paper, I'm going to draw around the shape just roughly. And then I'm going to put my ruler on my mirror line. Draw that in nice and straight. And then remember, we fold along that mirror line. Right, there we go. So lay it back on, line it up with the shape, fold over the mirror line, and we'll see where this shape goes. And there we go, we can see it just touches this shape and lines up with the rectangle we had before. So it will go with its 4 corners in these 4 places here. So I'll draw that in neatly. So that's that shape reflected. So I've now got a rectangle here, a square here, and then this trapezium shape here. So 2 left to do. Let's do this one next. Now save this one till later because it's y equals x. So it's a diagonal mirror line. That doesn't really make it any trickier. Remember, y equals x is the uphill one, and it neatly goes through the corners of all of these squares. There we go. So exactly the same process again. Got my tracing paper. In fact, I'm going to be sneaky and I'm going to reuse this tracing paper from before because it's the same shape. So I don't need to draw back round it. I'll draw in my new mirror line, which is this diagonal one here. And then I'm going to fold over my mirror line, line it back up and fold it over to see where my shape goes. And I can see that my shape will sit, I think I've folded it a bit skewiff. Do you know what I've done? Put my mirror line in the wrong place. So my mirror line should be here. Oh dear, it just goes to show we all make mistakes. So my mirror line, let's use a new piece of tracing paper now that I've made it so confusing. So if I use this pen, this is the mirror line because it needs to go through the origin, through where the x and y axes cross. So y equals x goes through the origin and then the corner of every square. So then on my piece of tracing paper, let's see if we can get it right this time. Draw around the shape. Draw over the mirror line. And then fold the mirror line. And now let's try reflecting it. So there's my shape, fold over the mirror line, and this time it lines up nicely with the shape that we had before as well. So it stacks on top of it, like this. And then I've only got one shape left to do, which is this square here, and that reflects in the line y equals minus x. So again, it goes through the origin. This time it goes downhill and carefully through the corners of all of the squares. So it will look like that. And using my tracing paper, I'm cheating again because I've already got a square drawn on this one. Draw around your square, draw your mirror line, and then we're going to fold it in the mirror line. So when I line it up and fold it over, I can see that my square goes here. Now I have got a bit on the other side of the mirror line, so I need to fold that one that way to see where that one will go. So everything on the top of my mirror line I fold downwards, and everything underneath my mirror line I fold upwards, and it will form a square that goes here like this. So you will see overall we have made the letter H. If I colour in all of these, I have this square, this rectangle, this square, this trapezium and this trapezium, so it's made a letter H. Now if you have a go at the one that I've put on showing my homework for you, that should make a whole word. So see if you can have a go at that.